Welcome into the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you have wonderful weekend plans ahead of you. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Christian. Good to be back, man.
It is. It's always nice to be back in the chair. How was your week, man?
It was pretty good. I don't necessarily know if I have a highlight of the week, but it's been a good week. Just working, hanging out. The roommates got a new place. They bought a house, and so they're getting ready to move.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're gonna help them move?
Yeah, they're doing some today, so I'll probably help them out this weekend. But that's the update of the Alex life.
Are you staying behind, or are you?
No, I'll probably end up following them because I don't really have much of a choice.
There you go.
So I'll end up following them.
That's cool though. Where's the house gonna be? Are you allowed to say?
It's in Tulla County.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good for you guys. That's fun.
Yeah.
Moving sucks.
It does suck, man. You got to pack up everything. Got to carry everything downstairs and into a truck, and then you got to carry it up back upstairs once you get to the house, man. It's a hassle.
Yep, I went through all of that just a couple months ago. Not the funnest thing ever, but hopefully the weather's nice because moving in bad weather is even less fun.
Yeah, dude, what's up? What's up with the weather? It's supposed to be spring.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Crazy. Snow. I don't think it's supposed to snow anymore over the weekend, knock on wood, but we'll see. How
was your week, man?
It was good. Wednesday night, I was able to go to the Utah Hockey Club game. My brother and I went, actually, so that was really fun. He had never been to a hockey game. He hasn't really had his finger on the hockey pulse since they came here, so it was fun taking him, and this was, I think, the second or third game I've been to. This was, like I said, his first game, so I think he liked it. I think he had fun. Unfortunately, no fights. I was really looking forward to there being a nice fight for him to see, but Utah Hockey Club did get the win. That one was over Anaheim. It was a really good game, so we'll talk more hockey later, but it was fun.
Good, man. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
I still need to get out there, man.
You haven't been?
I haven't been to a hockey game yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's heating up. I would definitely recommend going to one soon.
I think right now would be a good time. I'm looking, potentially, maybe, when the Kings are in town in April.
There you go.
Might go to that one.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
But we'll see.
Well, let's start things off. Let's talk college basketball. Obviously, conference tournaments are underway. Today is the championship game for most conferences, if not all, I think. And we don't have any local teams playing.
Unfortunate, man.
Except I haven't checked the WAC tournament. I should probably check that. But BYU and Utah State lost.
Utah Valley is going to a championship game.
Okay, so we do have one local team. Shout out to Utah Valley. They did win the regular season WAC conference title. And that gives them, I did some digging, that gives them an automatic qualifier to the NIT. But if they want to make the NCAA tournament, they've got to win this game today. So shout out Utah Valley. That's awesome. But Utah State and BYU both lost yesterday. You want to start Cougars or Aggies first?
Let's go Cougars first.
74-54 loss to Houston, number 2 team in the country. Houston is a great basketball team. BYU had been on a hot streak. They had won, what was it, like 8 games in a row?
9 in a row.
9 games in a row, including 2 games over Iowa State, a win over Arizona, a win over Kansas. A lot of big wins for the Cougs, and they had a lot of momentum going in to the game yesterday versus Houston, and there was a lot of optimism. There was a lot of thought that BYU could win, if not make it a close game, but they were just outmatched. I don't know, championship level basketball, I guess. Houston is one of the premier teams in the entire country, and the Cougars, I should clarify, the BYU Cougars, they're both Cougars.
They're both Cougars.
BYU just wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, you know what, man? I think there's currently in the current landscape of college basketball, there's a big difference between the number 2 in the country and the number 17 in the country.
Which is crazy, right?
And it is crazy, but that's not to knock BYU at all. That's just, I think Houston has been working the last couple of years, building towards this moment. The Houston Cougars are probably one of the national contenders this year. They are one of the national championship contenders. They've been building this team for a while, and I think at the end BYU just ran out of gas. And we're a little bit outmatched by that defense, that Houston defense, which is very, very good.
Yeah, that's kind of their calling card. That's what separates them. And I'll tell you what, Alex, with all the stuff with Cooper Flagg had a bad ankle injury for Duke the other day. I was going to pick Duke in all of my brackets that I fill out, but with the uncertainty there, I might be leaning Houston. This is a very, very good basketball team, and they show up when it matters. They held BYU to one of their worst shooting performances of recent games, 31% from the floor, all rounded up to 32 for the benefit of the doubt, 21% from three for BYU. Meanwhile, Houston, they got it done 41% from the field. That's not a great number, but they shot almost 40% from three. That's a really good number there. So, it's really just the lockdown defense. Yegor Demin, 25 minutes in this one. He finished with 6 points and 4 assists. Just didn't show up in the big game. And that's tough because this is the guy that one of the highest rated recruits ever for BYU. To this point, their highest rated recruit. And then they got AJ DeBonsa shortly after. But, projected lottery pick. There's a lot of chatter about whether or not he should come back to BYU next year. And I don't know, in these big games, semifinal in the Big 12 tournament, you would expect players like Demin to show up and have one of his best games. But 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 7 from three. It's tough.
I think one of the things that I heard being talked about a lot going into this game against Houston was BYU's depth, right? They usually have really, really good bench play, as well as really good play from their starters. But again, credit to Houston's defense, man. You have Richie Saunders, who only had 10 points in this one. Mawat Mag didn't even get a point. Yegor Demin struggled. And I think that's just credit to Houston's defense. I don't think that's any knock to BYU, who up to this point has had, especially considering the last 9 games, have been on a hot streak. And so, again, credit to Houston's defense. Yes, it sucks to see a guy like Yegor not really take that step in a big game like a Big 12 championship semifinal against a national contending team. But at the same time, I'm trying to look on the positive side because I don't want to discredit anything BYU did this season, because at the beginning of the season they struggled, Christian.
Yeah.
They weren't clicking at the beginning of the year. They were able to turn it around a couple games into Big 12 play. Obviously went on the big run, the 9-game streak, beat Iowa State twice, once at their place.
And Iowa State's a very good team.
But BYU is set up in a perfect position as you have a first-year head coach who I think we saw him kind of evolve and mature as the season went on. We saw guys like Yegor kind of grow and mature as the season went on. And this team has a lot of depth. A lot of good players on the bench and a lot to look forward to even next season. But right now there's still a big challenge coming up in the tournament next week.
Right. I don't want to make it sound like all is lost for BYU, because obviously they are going to have a great opportunity coming up next week. We'll see tomorrow when everything is finalized. I've seen a lot of chatter about them being projected as maybe a 5 seed after losing to Houston. I don't know how much that will change. And of course, this is all speculation anyway. But I think right there in the 5-6 range, I think that would be a really good spot for BYU. I think that's a very fair position. And it shows, I remember a couple weeks ago there were talks about them potentially being an 8-9 matchup against Utah State in the first round.
Right, exactly.
And they've risen so far since then. The loss to Houston last night, it stings. It sucks that
it does suck
that you lose by 20 points in the conference semifinals, but that doesn't mean you can't go out and win a couple games next week. And I really am excited to see what BYU is able to do, because the Big 12 is such a tough conference. They're most likely the second best basketball conference in the country this season. So for BYU to not compete against the, like we said, a national contender, that's one thing. But let's throw them out in the NCAA tournament and see how far Kevin Young can take this squad, because they really do have a lot of potential.
I think, be honest, Christian. Coming into this season, did you see BYU making it to a Big 12 semifinal?
No, and especially not just coming into the season, but like you said, they started off the year so slow,
right,
and it was problematic. A lot of people were kind of worried, and not, they started off the year with a few non-conference wins, right? But then they started off Big 12 play. What was it, 1-3? Or something like that.
It was something like that. I'm going to pull up their schedule real quick just to make sure
They
we're
beat Arizona State, then they lost to Houston, lost to Texas Tech, and lost to TCU.
There you go.
So they're 1-3 in conference play, and it's like, oh man, how many years is Kevin Young going to last here? Oh man, Yegor Demeen, what is he doing? Like, this is really bad. And then they went on that hot streak, and like we said, they closed the season on an 8-game losing streak, and then they won against Iowa State in the quarterfinals, and then they, unfortunately, they lost to Houston. But this is a very good basketball team, and I think, to illustrate your point, they far exceeded expectations, and that's what matters.
I think so. I think that they, like I said, we kind of saw this team mature and really start to click as the season went on. That 8-game winning streak, made it 9 into the tournament. That's something to kind of hang your hat on and be proud of, considering that you got off to a slow start this season. It was a new team. We knew it was going to take time for them to kind of figure it out. And once they really figured it out, they started playing some really good, really fun basketball. Yes, it sucks to lose by 20 to Houston in a semifinal. That stings. And I don't want to take that away because it sucks. But there's a lot to be proud of, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be proud of. Like you mentioned, just about a month ago, this team was projected to the 8th seed. We were talking about BYU, Utah State going up against each other in the tournament. Now, for the latest bracketology from ESPN and Lenardi, currently a 5th seed in Denver.
Yeah, and they would be facing Xavier or Boise State in this bracket. I have the same one pulled up.
I would have loved to see them take on Boise State.
Yeah, and Boise State, by the way, last night, huge win in the Mountain West Conference tournament. They beat New Mexico, the number 1 seed.
I thought the Lobos were going to take it.
Yeah, it was a thrilling game right up until the very end. I tuned in for the final. I mean, I was checking the score, and then I saw that it was really close with a few minutes left, and I was like, oh, I got to see this. So shout out to Boise State, and we'll talk Mountain West later after we wrap up the Big 12 conversation. But Arizona beat Texas Tech, and so Arizona will be playing Houston in the championship game today.
That's going to be
Do you know what time that game is at? I haven't seen.
That's going to be a fun matchup, man. The two of the best basketball schools going head-to-head, going at each other in a Big 12 championship game. Arizona, who is always one of those teams in those conversations of national contenders, you put them in the Big 12. That was already a really good basketball conference.
Yep.
I think the Big 12 is the best basketball conference. Don't give me that. Don't give me the SEC. I don't want to hear it. Don't give me the SEC. The Big 12 basketball is where it's at, baby.
Big 12 championship today at 4, by the way. Number 3 seed Arizona versus the number 1 seed Houston Cougars. That is going to be a great game, and I'm thrilled. I'm excited to watch that because those are two teams that are definitely going to be making pushes late in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, that'll be fun. We'll see who wins that. BYU did beat Arizona, by the way. They split the series, but they beat Arizona in Arizona. So
yes, you know what, man?
Just throwing that out there.
I'm taking Houston tonight.
Are you?
I
think I will too. I think they're a juggernaut.
I think what we've seen this past week from Houston, they're showing that they are one of the premier teams in the country. I like Arizona. I think they're a really good basketball team. But at the end of the day, I think Houston's defense is where it's at, and that's what's going to get them over the line in this championship game.
I agree.
Yeah.
Utah State, the score, the final 83-72 makes it seem closer than it was. To be honest with you, Alex,
it wasn't.
It was not. This was a very disappointing performance from Utah State. And I'm glad they almost kind of made a late push to sort of make it close in the end. But, like, this Utah State team, a lot of their problems showed up yesterday. And it is a little worrying. as far as if they can even win a game in the NCAA tournament. Because this zone defense that they run, it looked really good at the start of the year. They had some great non-conference wins. But then as they started playing the premier teams in the Mountain West Conference, they just figured it out. The other teams figured it out.
Yeah.
And Utah State was not able to adjust and find a way to stop these top teams from scoring. This is their second game against Colorado State in like 2 weeks, and both of them were blowout losses. And so that's not good. That's, Utah State was like the number 2 seed in the Mountain West, and Colorado State was, I think, the 3 or 4 seed, right?
Yes.
And so they're 2 very good basketball teams, and when you face each other, like I said, twice in about a 2-week span, and you get blown out in both of those games, that's pretty worrying. And it just all around, I think Utah State is just disappointing. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think for, the conversation from BYU is they struggled to start the season. They got really hot at the right time. The same thing can be said about Colorado State. Not the same thing can be said about Utah State. I think Utah State started off the season really, really hot, and they've kind of fizzled out, man. And it's a conversation we had last week right before they took on Air Force. They got right against Air Force, but I mean, it's Air Force. And then I thought they played a well enough game against UNLV, but something was missing. Something was lacking, and I was a little concerned about this Colorado State game because, again, Colorado State is one of the hottest teams in the nation right now. They're on a tear, and they were able to kind of take it to Utah State last night, man.
And Clifford on Colorado State, he's a dog. He
Bonafide baller.
Yeah, he was awesome.
26 points, man. 26 points. You got
7 of 13 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3.
11 rebounds, 6 assists. Bonafide baller in Clifford. But regardless, I do like the fight from Utah State. Down 49-30 at the half. You do make a game out of it in the second half, but you just couldn't get there in the end.
Yeah, late in the second, I mean, they were down by 24 points at one point with like 8 minutes left, and then they scratched and clawed their way back, and they came within, I think they came within 9.
Might have been 7.
Yeah, 7. It was 69-77.
There you go.
So that's 8, I guess, right? But either way, it was down to a single-digit game.
I like the fight, man. I do enjoy the fight, but I think in last night's game, Utah State's fight just showed up a little bit too late.
I think their biggest issue is Ian Martinez has been their lead scorer. And when he's off, they don't really have anybody else that can step up. Ironic enough, so Mason Falslev led the team in scoring last night with 22 points.
Right.
But he was 3 of 10 from 3, 9 of 19 from the field. So he's really just hucking up shots. 22 points on 29 shot attempts.
Ugh.
Or, excuse me, that's 19 shot attempts. But still,
okay,
that's you got to be more efficient than that. And
I think as a whole, you just have to be more efficient, man.
Right.
36% from the field.
Yeah. So outside of Ian, when nobody else is, when Ian's cold, they don't have really another go-to scoring option. Dexter Akano, who at one point led the conference in 3-point shooting, he finished with 0 points. He only took 1 3-point attempt.
All game.
He struggled with fouls. The whole team struggled with fouls. They had a couple guys foul out versus UNLV. And then last night, Aben Gadaretzi finished with 4 fouls. Dayton Albury finished with 4 fouls. Martinez and Akano, they had 3 each. Carson Templin off the bench, he had 4 fouls. So that's tough too when you've got a lot of guys in foul trouble. But going back to the efficiency on offense, they just couldn't buy a basket. Like it was a tough watch. They were getting okay looks. But then there were times, too, where it just felt like they panicked and hucked up shots. They had Isaac Davis, a guy that didn't play a lot during the season. There was a key possession late in the game where somehow the ball found its way into Isaac Davis's hands. He took his first 3-point attempt of the season because the shot clock was winding down, and he airballed it. It's like those are the things that should not be happening in a conference tournament, right?
I agree. I agree.
So when you see that happen, it's just like, oh, yeah, these guys are panicking a little bit. So it was good that Utah State won a game. It's good that they beat UNLV. I think that locked them into the NCAA tournament. I think it's going to be pretty hard to leave them out. But you look at this Colorado State loss, and it's like it's a pretty bad taste in your mouth.
Right now, Utah State, the conversation after last night is you kind of have to wait to see if you're going to be in or not. Currently, again, ESPN Lenardi does have them projected in at the 10 seed as one of the last 4 buys. So one of the last 4 teams making it into the brackets.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy conversation because, a month ago, as we were talking about that 8-9 game potentially against BYU, they were almost a lock.
Yeah. They've been a near lock.
We were talking about Utah State as a lock, and now the conversation, they've fizzled out this last month to the point where the conversation now, after this loss to Colorado State, is, oh, we have to wait to see their destiny to see if they're in or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a disappointment. Not to discredit, because again, it's been a good season.
It has.
26 wins is no joke. You have to be a good basketball team to get 26 wins on the season. But the reality is, I think Utah State has fizzled out. Teams have figured them out.
Today is March 15th, so let's go back to the past month, February 16th. They are 4-5. 4 wins over San Jose State, San Diego State, Air Force, and UNLV, and then 5 losses at New Mexico, at Boise State, at Colorado State, and then versus Colorado State in the tournament. So like you're saying, for the past month, we were talking about this team as a near lock, and it's just they just haven't been able to wrap it up for themselves. So we'll see there. I do think they have what it takes to win a game in the tournament based on their matchup, though. I think it's going to be very matchup dependent. Right now in this projection that we're both looking at from ESPN, they'd be playing Kansas, the number 7 seed, which I think would be a pretty tough matchup. I know Kansas lost to Utah and BYU, and they lost, who was it, Cincinnati that beat them
in the Big 12 tournament? No, Arizona. Arizona beat them in the tournament, I think.
Either way, I mean, it's not your father's Kansas team, right? But it's still Kansas.
It's not the Kansas we're used to seeing, right? It's not the national contending blue blood Kansas we're seeing. It's been an off year for Kansas.
Yeah.
The reality is it's been an off year for Kansas, but now if Utah State takes on Kansas in the tournament, that will be a tough matchup.
That's not a matchup I'm thrilled about.
That would be a tough matchup.
So again, these are just projections. We will know for certain tomorrow when they do the big selection Sunday thing. But regardless, it's tough. BYU and Utah State both coming off big losses. Big losses, but it's not over. It's March, and we're ready.
It is March. I'm so excited for the brackets to come out tomorrow. I'm so excited for that to be announced. I'm very, very interested to see how deep BYU can make it, right? Because there's a lot of talk about this BYU team being a Sweet 16 team. I'm not buying into it yet, but I am curious to see how much or how far the Cougars are able to make it in this tournament.
Yeah, we'll see. How many brackets are you going to be filling out?
I like to do a good amount. Just in case, one gets busted, and then I feel good about myself and I can say it's my main bracket,
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Hey, speaking of which, we got some KSL bracket going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the liner actually to make sure that I get the sponsor right. There it is. March is here, and KSL Sports is looking to hook you up. Go to KSLSports.com to sign up for KSL Sports Basketball Mayhem. Make your picks for a chance to win $1 million for a perfect bracket. And then the best local bracket wins $1,000. And if you beat KSL Sports host Jeremiah Jensen, you'll be entered to win $500. Powered by Omada Real Estate. Download the free Omada Real Estate app today from the real estate experts at the Stern team. So again, KSLSports.com. You can fill out a bracket for a chance to win some money.
Love it, man.
Who doesn't love money?
This is March. It is one of the greatest times of the year, and I'm so excited for the madness to begin.
There you go. Take a quick break here. Coming up next, let's talk some. The NBA has a little investigation going on. This is fun. I love the drama. The Jazz, of course, got fined for tanking the other day, and then now the 76ers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are both under investigation. They could get hit with some fines as well. We'll talk about that next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. Alex, the Jazz got a little slap on the wrist. Let's talk about it.
A little.
It's a little. A couple days ago, the NBA handed out a $100,000 fine to the Utah Jazz for violating the player participation policy. I say a little slap on the wrist because Ryan Smith has a lot of money. $100,000, I don't think, is a lot.
That probably won't affect them too much.
But regardless, it's something that I had kind of been worried about, and I'm interested to see the NBA actually do something. Long story short, the violation occurred when the Jazz failed to make Lauri Markkanen, who is a star player under the NBA policy. The Jazz did not make Lauri Markkanen available for the team's game against the Washington Wizards on March 5th at Capital One Arena, as well as other recent games. So, to paraphrase here, if you have a star player, which means they have made the NBA All-Star team in the last 3 years, the NBA wants you to play them if they are healthy. And, of course, the Jazz winning games is not their main priority right now.
They haven't been playing Lauri.
And they have not been playing Lauri Markkanen. Right. He allegedly has had some back spasms.
He's hurt.
Has caused him to miss a lot of games this year,
he's hurt.
according to these injury reports. So my theory is obviously the Jazz and the Wizards, two of the worst teams in the NBA.
Right.
The Jazz won that game. So I think the Wizards complained to the NBA. I think the Wizards were like, hey, you know what? We had a worse record than the Jazz. They beat us. Now they have a worse record than us. But it's not fair because they sat Lauri Markkanen, who's a star player. So let's complain to the NBA. That's my theory.
And I think that's a plausible theory, because if I'm the Washington Wizards and I, if I accidentally beat the Jazz, I'm gonna be a little upset.
Yeah.
I want that number 1 seed. I want that worst record in the NBA if I'm the Wizards.
Right now, so I misspoke earlier. The Jazz are tied. Not tied. The Wizards are 14-51. The Jazz are 15-52. So the Jazz have played one more game.
Yes.
Or two more games, actually. Regardless, though, they play once more. That game is going to be a huge matchup. That's coming up on March 19th, next week. But this has a lot of ramifications for the number one spot in the draft lottery, right? Mm-hmm. Finishing with the worst record doesn't mean you get the number one pick, but it gives you the best odds at a top 5 pick, which that's what it's all about.
That's what you want.
You're trying to lose as many games as possible, the Wizards and the Jazz. And it's funny because the Wizards sat players in that game too. They sat Jordan Poole. They sat Malcolm Brogdon. But those players don't qualify as a star under the league's policy. So they get to point fingers and say, hey, Lauri Markkanen, he made an all-star 2 years ago. He's a star. The Jazz shouldn't be sitting him if he's healthy. And, of course, that's just speculation. I don't know if the Wizards really did complain. But that makes a lot of sense to me because I don't know why else the NBA would care because everybody's tanking.
I just find it odd that the game in question is the game against Washington.
Right.
If it was a game against OKC, if it was a game against the Lakers.
Well, so some of those games against the better teams, the Jazz are playing Lauri because even when Lowry plays, they don't have a very good chance of winning. But they've played a lot of these other every bad team that they play. You could point to the Pelicans. You can point to they've played a lot of bad teams lately where Lauri Markkanen has not played. They played the Raptors, the 76ers. So yeah, it is interesting to have that specific game against the Wizards, the one that is pointed to.
So does that mean they're going to get fined again?
I don't think so.
Because Markkanen didn't play the second half last night, did he?
No, which is funny. So, like, do you start doing the thing where, remember how there's, like, the participation rule if you want to qualify for All-Star or All-NBA awards, right?
Right.
So you'd see players, like, play at tip-off, and then they'd immediately sub out, but that counts as a game played.
Right.
So are we going to start playing that, or seeing that with Lauri Markkanen? I think
they did it last night.
The big story is the Jazz are still going to tank. They're still going to try and lose games. Now they just have to be a little more careful about who they sit. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen is a great player, and he isn't playing as good this season as he has in years past, but he's still a really good player. And if he's on the court, you have a higher chance of winning the game than if he's off the court.
I also thought it was interesting that Walker Kessler was in uniform and didn't play last night.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Tank note.
He's never made an All-Star game, so yeah, you're going to see a lot less Walker Kessler, a lot less John Collins. Colin Sexton. A lot of these guys that still help you win games, but they don't qualify as stars. So that's a funny thing there. But that was a couple days ago. When was that? Wednesday, I think, when that came out.
I think it was Wednesday, yes.
But guess what, Alex? A couple other teams have been fined and are being investigated for sitting players, violating this player participation policy. Shams Charania from ESPN, he tweeted, the NBA is investigating the Oklahoma City Thunder for potentially violating the player participation policy. The game under review is their March 7th win over Portland, in which the Thunder sat their entire starting five. I didn't see this, but their entire starting five sat against Portland. The Thunder still won the game, by the way. But it's clear that, if you have these star players, the NBA does not want you to sit them just for fun.
Why are we going after OKC?
Yeah.
For a game that they won.
It's funny that with the Jazz, they point to Lauri Markkanen because he is a quote-unquote star player by definition.
Right.
Under this definition, how many of these guys are star players? I know that Shea and Jalen Williams made the All-Star game this year. I don't think Chet has made an All-Star game. Lou Dort hasn't. I'm not sure about Isaiah Hartenstein. But either way, like this tweet specifically names those 5 players.
Right.
Only 2 of them are All-Stars. So I don't know.
It's to me, it's interesting and weird to kind of, I guess, be going after a team that's the number 1 in the Western Conference.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a good thing. I mean, everybody always complains about, the NBA sucks. These guys aren't playing. So this is, I guess, the NBA stepping up and doing something about it. I just think it's funny they waited until mid-March.
Yeah, and why are we finding all these teams all of a sudden?
Yeah, why wait until now?
Exactly. Why
There's
now?
a lot of questions.
That's a great question. Why now?
Why now? Why, with a month and a half left in the season, why now when you should have been doing this all season? Crack down on teams in October.
And it looks like there's going to be other teams currently being investigated.
The 76ers being investigated as well. This is a funny one, though, because Paul George was the big fish in the free agent pond. Joel Embiid won an MVP 2 years ago.
Right.
And then Tyrese Maxey, he's obviously a really good player as well. So the NBA is looking into that. Philadelphia, though, they don't have a chance of finishing with, one of the worst records in the league. They're right there on the bubble, though. The thing is, their pick is top 6 protected. If their pick falls outside of the top 6, it goes to Oklahoma City. So the Thunder are really, really worried about keeping that pick.
The Thunder probably reported to them.
Yeah, that could be true too.
Think about it, man.
All these teams are snitching on each other.
Yeah, the Wizards are over here complaining about the Jazz and reporting the Jazz. You got who? I still don't. Was it Portland who complained about OKC? I don't know. But OKC was probably like, oh, you're going to fine us? Look into Philadelphia. We want their pick, man.
It's a domino effect. Yeah, they're all getting upset.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
I could see it I could see it being played out that way.
If I were the Thunder, I'd be upset about it. Because, yeah, there have been conversations about shutting down Joel Embiid for the rest of the season. There's been conversations about shutting down Paul George. And it's not like you're winning games with those guys anyway. But, you know, the Thunder really want that pick. And I would too, because it's a pretty good draft. And if you could get the number 7 pick with this roster that the Thunder already has, like, yeah, I'd be complaining.
If I have the potential of getting that lottery, thanks to the 76ers, absolutely, I'm pointing fingers.
Yeah.
I'm being like, hey, what's going on with Paul George?
So, bottom line is, this is stuff to keep an eye on, I guess, down the stretch because, yeah, everybody rests players.
And that's probably why this is happening now. We're getting close to the end of the season. We're down to the final stretch. I think there's like, a month left of NBA play before we get to the playoffs?
Something like
that. Or I guess the play-ins. So teams like Oklahoma City are probably looking at Philadelphia and are dying for their pick.
Yeah.
And they probably complained. And it's probably happening now because teams want their picks. They want their lottery pick.
Yeah, you're going to start seeing, teams that are on the bubble kind of make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. For example, Orlando, they are the 15th seed right now, or 15th best record in the NBA. So they kind of have a decision to make, right? Like, do we want to lose a few games and end up in the lottery or not?
I think you'd want to be in the lottery.
Well, yeah, and each team is a little different, but bottom line is there are going to be more and more teams making these decisions, Where do the Raptors want to finish? Where do the Nets want to finish? Where do the Kings want to finish? Where do the Suns want to finish? Well, actually, the Suns don't own their pick, so that doesn't matter. But, yeah.
If I'm Houston, I own Phoenix's pick. Why don't I complain about them?
Yeah, that's true, too. Watch Kevin Durant.
Everybody's just going to start complaining on each other and snitching on each other, man.
Which I guess ultimately that could end up being a good thing if we start seeing these players play more, which has been, I think, the NBA's biggest problem is the guys not playing, right? You want to see the star players out there. So maybe this is a step in the right direction. It's unfortunate that it has to take these teams snitching and complaining on each other. But it's funny to see the NBA actually doing something. And it all started with the Jazz.
It all starts with Utah. Pioneers.
Do you think that there are some tinfoil hat people out there that are saying that, oh, this is a sign that the NBA will rig the lottery so Cooper Flagg doesn't come to Utah? No way the NBA would let the Jazz win the lottery.
No.
Because of this.
I don't see that yet.
Do you think the NBA rigs the lottery?
I think it's too early. No. No, I think it's I think the lottery is a fair, due diligent process where the magic balls roll perfectly fine to the right team.
Yeah. Look. It is what it is. The tanking and such. That's what's funny is the Jazz are this bad. They're 15-52, the second worst record in the NBA. And this is kind of why they're getting picked on is because we all know they're not that bad. If they really wanted to.
No, absolutely not, man.
If they really wanted to, this is a 30 or 35 win team. But that's why they have to sit all these guys because if they played, they wouldn't be bad enough to finish with a good lottery pick.
I genuinely believe, right? You cannot tell me that Colin Sexton is a bad player.
No.
You cannot tell me that Lauri Markkanen is a bad player. You cannot tell me John Collins. I'll throw Keontae George. You can't tell me Walker Kessler's a bad player.
No,
right?
Not at all.
There's some really good dudes on this team.
To be honest with you, right now, for example, the Kings, 33-33. I genuinely believe that if the Jazz wanted to, they could be right there around where the Kings are.
I'm just ready for, the tank better be worth it.
Yeah, but that's not the point, right? That's not what it's all. It's not about. They don't care about making the playoffs this year. They care about getting a good draft pick,
right?
Getting the franchise player to build around, whether it's Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, somebody.
The tank better be worth it. Because if the Jazz end up in a bad position due to this lottery, I think there's going to be a lot of upset people out there.
That's worst case scenario.
That is worst case. That is absolutely worst case scenario. I mean, right now you're sitting with tied up for the worst record with Washington. Just have an extra game above them. You've lost 8. You're right there battling for the worst record. And imagine you don't get a number 1 overall pick. Or imagine you don't even go top 3.
Yeah, I think that's the worry, right?
Because that happened to the Pistons last year.
Right. You only have a 14% chance of getting that number 1 overall pick. So those are the better way to look at it is you have an 86% chance of not getting Cooper Flagg. Those are pretty big odds. But yeah, then you start to worry about your floor. How far can you fall? Worst case scenario, are you picking 5th or 6th? And that's a big deal. That's a big difference.
It happened to the Pistons last year, man. And that's a cynical, bad way to look at it, probably, but the tank better be worth it.
That's why it's important to lose every single game that you can, because it's a 50% chance of a top 4 pick where the Jazz are at right now. So there's a 50% chance that they're not a top 4 pick. You want to finish with that worst record because then you can only fall to 5.
Never tell me the odds, Christian.
I know. Sorry. No, this is, like I said, something to keep an eye on. We'll see what happens over the next week as the NBA starts to crack down on this. We'll see how much these other teams get fined. I don't think that it was announced if the other teams got fined or not.
Not yet, but
they're being investigated.
I think potentially they might.
Okay. And yeah, more teams, like you said, there's probably more teams being checked out for this type of stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. Jazz schedule coming up. They are at the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow. Then they're at home versus Chicago Monday. Then they host the Wizards Wednesday. And then they host the Celtics Friday. So a couple of big games there. You'd want to lose against Minnesota. You want to lose against the Wizards. You want to lose against Chicago. You want to lose against Boston. You want to lose against all these teams. But that Washington game, I think that is going to make or break this tank.
I think so. That's a big game. That's a big against the Washington Wizards. We're talking about the Washington Wizards being a big game, man. Oh boy.
So we'll stay on that next. Of course, we're going to have all the action here on the KSL Sports Zone. Let's take a break, Alex. Coming up next on the other side, we'll hit technical fouls. I saw you talking about Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. We'll hit that next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
you'll get hit with a bat.
'Cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. It's time for Technical Fouls, one of our favorite segments of the show, where we like to joke about things, keep it light, talk about some of the funnier things that happen in the sports world. Alex, why don't you start us off today?
I'm sure you saw this, Christian. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, going at each other on social media for something DeMarcus Lawrence said. Now, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, DeMarcus Lawrence, former defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys, signed in free agency by the Seattle Seahawks, was being interviewed by the Seahawks brass about, arriving to Seattle. A clip that has now gone viral because of what he said about Dallas. So let's take a listen. This is DeMarcus Lawrence, D-end, talking about his move to Seattle.
Dallas is my home. I made my home there. My family lives there. I'm forever going to be there. But, I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. So, yeah. We here.
We're here. DeMarcus Lawrence, welcome to the Seahawks. Thanks for joining us.
Dallas.
So he's talking about what he left Dallas because he's not going to win a Super Bowl there. That clip went viral. Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, close friends, mind you.
Well, they used to be.
I guess they used to be now, but there might be some bad blood between the two because Micah Parsons, he's very vocal, very active on social media, tweets like 20 times almost every day.
Yeah.
Very active. He sees the video. Obviously, he's going to respond. Quote tweets the video and says, "This is what rejection and envy look like." This on some clown stuff. And so, of course, DeMarcus Lawrence sees that, and he responds, and he says, "Calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spend less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left."
Who doesn't love talking crap on the Cowboys?
Oh, man, it's amazing.
And now that Tank Lawrence doesn't play there anymore, he gets to join in on the fun. It is fun.
Oh, it's amazing, man. You go viral, obviously, because, he says, "I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. It's my home. Dallas is my home. I had to leave because I'm not going to win there." And so Micah Parsons takes offense to that, starts off some Twitter beef, and then DeMarcus Lawrence answers in the best way possible. Stop tweeting, start winning.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I thought, DeMarcus Lawrence was there for a very long time. And so I'm surprised that it's going to feel weird seeing him play for another team. But at the same time, they're paying so much money to Dak Prescott. They're paying so much money to CeeDee Lamb. Micah Parsons is going to get a huge deal coming up soon. So, yeah, they just didn't have the money to keep Tank there. And now he gets to talk the talk that everybody loves to talk.
He gets to talk yes, absolutely. He gets to talk the talk. But realistically, Christian, can you say that when you're going to Seattle?
I mean, the Seattle Seahawks...
Are you going to win in Seattle?
I would genuinely say the Seahawks have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Cowboys next year.
Sure.
And that's what matters.
But are they contenders?
No, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is just finishing with a better record than Dallas now. Less time tweeting and more time winning. That's awesome.
Yes.
Great quote.
I'm going to steal that one.
For my technical foul, let's go with the Dallas Mavericks again. They're on a hot streak.
Can we go to the Dallas Mavericks? I feel bad beating up on them
I feel
at this
bad,
point.
and it's nothing in their control. Dante Exum, former Jazz man, mind you, he broke his hand, so he is expected to miss a ton of time. Basically, the Dallas Mavericks are a walking injury report. Dante Exum is out with his hand. This comes after Kyrie Irving tore his ACL. Anthony Davis has an adductor strain. Washington has an ankle strain. Daniel Gafford has a knee problem. Derek Lively hurt his ankle. It's just falling apart for Dallas. This is bad karma.
I feel bad for him, man.
Yeah.
The fans, the Mavs fans don't deserve this.
No.
Nico Harrison, I don't know. Nico Harrison is going to be the most hated man in Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a very, very long time.
Yeah. He's going to need to enter witness protection.
You trade for Anthony Davis, he gets hurt, Kyrie gets hurt. You basically have just about everybody on that team hurt. Season tickets are going up. It's a whole storm of a mess for the Dallas Mavericks, and I feel bad for their fans, man.
Yeah.
I would hate to be a Mavs fan.
I would too.
I would rather be in a tanking situation with the Jazz than in the situation that the Dallas Mavericks are in right now.
Let's hope.
Yes.
Let's hope it works out for both sides.
Knock on some wood.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up next, let's recap NFL free agency. It opened on Monday. There were some big moves all across the league, some big trades. A lot of things kind of got shaken up across the NFL. So we'll hit that next. This is the Saturday Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.